there's no way that you're going to take your girlfriend on a date to a cemetery. So I don't know how he even chose the spot that he chose.
That was really cowardly of you to drag it out this long, to make us wait this long. She's gone and she's not coming back. That's the worst news ever. And thinking that, she was going to be able to make it back home. And that this man was not such a monster. But I see that wasn't true. That wasn't true. And it make it hard for you to trust. It make it hard for you to trust again.
Everyone, basically, Miss Franklin, that is Allisha Watts' mother, says that right now there are so many questions, many more questions than she has answers for. She also told us about the last time that she spoke to her daughter. Her daughter was on a date going to a concert here at the Bojangles Arena. Little did she know that was the last time she would ever hear from her daughter. Vex Franklin still grieving the murder of her daughter, Allisha Watts, who was last seen alive at her boyfriend James Dunmore's house in Charlotte last year. Her body later found near a cemetery in Montgomery County.
All I do is cry all the time, and I know it's not healthy for me. But that's a tear I can't dry up. I don't want the world to forget my baby, because she was wonderful.
She never drove home. Instead, 2 days after she was last seen, her boyfriend, James Dunmore, was discovered alone inside Allisha's black Mercedes at a DMV parking lot nearly 70 miles away. Allisha was nowhere inside the vehicle. Her purse was still there. Her phone would later be found inside James's home. And the man driving her car had no clear explanation for where she had gone. But that was not the only secret surrounding the relationship. James Dunmore had told Allisha's cousin that he was not married. He had a legal wife. And when the case reached court, that wife did not sit behind James. She sat with Allisha's grieving family and described years of alleged abuse at the hands of the same man Allisha had traveled to see. One woman said she had spent years trying to escape him. The other vanished after spending a weekend inside his home. So did Allisha know she was dating a married man? Was James telling two women completely different stories? And how did an ordinary weekend involving a comedy show end with Allisha's remains hidden in woods behind cemetery? Before we go deeper, subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed for real stories where hidden relationships, family secrets, and betrayal turn deadly. And listen closely, because this case did not end with a murder trial or a full confession. It ended with a plea deal that left Allisha's family with a sentence, but still no complete explanation for what happened to her. Allisha Watts was 39 years old and lived in the Foxfire area of Moore County, North Carolina. She had built a life that appeared stable and purposeful. Allisha had recently opened a support services business and was involved in work connected to people dealing with mental health challenges and elderly members of her community. She was known as someone who did not just complain when something needed improvement. She offered ideas, helped where she could, and tried to make the situation better. Friends and relatives remembered her as joyful, outgoing, direct, and honest. If Allisha believed someone was wrong, she would tell them. She loved dancing. She had plans for her approaching 40th birthday and was reportedly preparing for a cruise later that summer. Her life was moving. Her business was new. Her family expected many more birthdays, trips, and celebrations. What they did not expect was that the relationship Allisha had entered would place her at the center of a disappearance that crossed several North Carolina counties. Allisha regularly traveled to Charlotte to visit her cousin, Gwendolyn Utley. During those visits, she met James Dunmore, who lived nearby. James was 51 years old, more than a decade older than Allisha. The two started seeing each other, and what may have begun as a neighborhood connection developed into a relationship. Allisha reportedly began making the drive from Moore County to Charlotte every other weekend. She would arrive on Friday, spend time with James, and then return home. From the outside, this could have looked like a mature relationship between two adults who lived in different cities and were trying to make the distance work. But there was something James had failed to explain honestly. He had a wife. James Dunmore and Arte Bruton were legally married. They had married in 2021, although Arte later said they were separated and she was pursuing a divorce. That separation is important. Being legally married does not automatically mean James and Arte were still living together as a normal couple. But another detail made the situation more suspicious. When Allisha's cousin asked James about his relationship status, he denied being married. Gwendolyn had previously seen him with another woman and wanted to know who she was. James dismissed that woman as merely a girlfriend, not his wife, not someone he had legally married, just a girlfriend.
When I met him, he told me that he was not married. He told me I'd seen the lady that he was with when I moved here, and he told me that that was his girlfriend.
That means Allisha may not have entered the relationship knowing the complete truth. To her, James could have presented himself as single, separated, available, or completely free of another serious relationship. To his legal wife, the picture may have looked very different. This is where the story becomes more than a missing person case. One woman was traveling regularly to spend weekends with James. Another woman was still legally married to him and would later tell a courtroom that she had spent years experiencing abuse in that relationship. Were both women being told that the other one did not matter? Did James tell Allisha that Arte was only an ex or a casual girlfriend? Did he tell Arte that Allisha meant nothing? Or did he keep the two women far enough apart that neither could compare the stories he was giving them? James's documented history made those questions even more serious. Public court records showed that his criminal history stretched back years and included convictions connected to abduction, stalking, assault, and battery. He had previously served time following an abduction conviction and received an extended period of probation. Then, only months before Allisha disappeared, a domestic violence protective order was filed against him. The woman seeking that protection described frightening behavior. She alleged that James had held her down, threatened her, and made her fear for her life on more than one occasion. She also claimed he had shown her photographs, suggesting he knew where she was, and implied that someone might be following her. The court granted the protective order.
Allisha never ever had any suspicion about this guy. Oh, I feel like he really preyed on my friend.
Court documents obtained by ABC 11 detail accounts of an alleged assault and abduction by a woman listed as his spouse back in March.
His name is Dunmore. He's done a lot more, as we can see, for his criminal background. We've been interested. He's been a person.
The allegations did not prove exactly what happened to Allisha, but they revealed that the man she was visiting had a history of conflict and accusations that may not have been visible when she first began dating him. That creates one of the most uncomfortable questions in the case. How much did Allisha know? Did she know about the marriage? Did she know about his criminal history? Did she know another woman had recently gone to court seeking protection from him? Allisha's family described her as independent and intelligent. But intelligent people can still be deceived. A person does not need to be foolish to believe someone who is deliberately presenting a false version of himself. If James looked Allisha and her family in the eye and said he was not married, why would they automatically assume he was lying? And if he had explained his criminal history by blaming previous partners, claiming he had changed, or insisting the past was misunderstood, Allisha may have believed she was seeing the real man while everyone else had judged him unfairly. That is how dangerous relationships often begin. Not with obvious violence, with explanations, with charm, with a story about why every previous woman was wrong, with the promise that this relationship will be different. By July 2023, Allisha was still making trips to Charlotte to see James. On Friday, July 14th, she left home for another weekend visit. Before leaving, Allisha spoke to her mother, Yvex Franklin. Yvex was used to her daughter traveling and handling her own affairs. Allisha would usually tell her when she was leaving town or had something planned. Nothing about this trip appeared unusual enough to make her family believe it would be the last time they heard from her. Allisha and James were supposed to attend an 85 South comedy show at Bojangles Coliseum. Gwendolyn was involved in the plan. Tickets had been purchased. It was supposed to be a group outing. But Allisha did not arrive. James did not arrive either. At first, missing the show may have looked irritating rather than terrifying. Adults change plans. Couples argue. People fall asleep, go somewhere else, or decide they no longer feel like attending an event. But Allisha was not the kind of person who simply disappeared from everyone's life without an explanation. Her cousin knew her schedule. She knew Allisha had paid for the ticket. She knew her other plans. And she knew that if Allisha had suddenly left for a vacation or changed her schedule, she would have told someone. The last confirmed sighting reportedly came on Sunday, July 16th. That morning, Gwendolyn saw Allisha getting into the passenger side of her own Mercedes. James was behind the wheel. That detail would become important. It was Allisha's car. but James was driving. The pair appeared to be leaving to get something to eat. Gwendolyn went to church. When she returned, Allisha's Mercedes was still parked near James's home. It remained there through the day. By Monday morning, the vehicle was still present. Then sometime after midnight, the Mercedes disappeared. Gwendolyn initially assumed Allisha had finally left and driven home. But Allisha never arrived. The car had left Charlotte. Allisha apparently had not. On July 18th, state troopers were called to a DMV parking lot in Anson County. There, inside Allisha's black Mercedes, they found James Dunmore. Alone. Reports described him as needing medical attention. He was initially responsive and was later found unresponsive inside the vehicle. Emergency personnel became involved, but Allisha was not with him. Her purse was inside the Mercedes. Her phone was later recovered at James's home. Take a moment and consider what that looked like.
An uneventful Thursday afternoon in the University City neighborhood of James Dunmore. The man, family and friends of Allisha Watts say she was dating for the last several months. A different scene, however, late Wednesday night.
I'm in front of our crib.
According to Watts' friend, who captured the cell phone video sometime after 7 last night, it shows at least one police unit parked in front of the home associated with the boyfriend and a couple of officers in the front doorway.
I'm creeping. I'm just going to keep creeping back and forth.
In the video, we can see CMPD officers at the home. We reached out to the police department and we were told that they couldn't confirm their involvement. We're also still trying to learn if detectives have talked to Dunmore and where he is now. Neighbors of Dunmore, who are also cousins of Watts, describe him as helpful, but they also admit they don't know him all that well.
He's not on no social
Located
media.
on social media.
You cannot, he's a guy that you'll see around in person, but he's not on the social media at all.
You will actually have to know him to know him.
A lack of information is what those close to her say is frustrating.
The last person known to be with Allisha was found driving her car. He had traveled away from Charlotte. Her belongings remained around him. Her phone was back at his house, and the owner of the vehicle had vanished. If James and Allisha had separated voluntarily, why did he have her car? If Allisha had decided to go somewhere else, how did she get there without her phone, purse, or vehicle? If there had been an emergency, why was James not urgently asking officers to help find her? And if he had no idea where she was, why had he driven her Mercedes to another county? At this point, I want your honest opinion. Would you still have viewed this as a normal missing person case? Or would seeing James alone in Allisha's car, with her purse inside and her phone left at his home, have convinced you that he already knew exactly what had happened? Tell me in the comments, because Allisha's family did not believe she had simply taken off. On July 19th, after Allisha failed to report to her business, the concern became impossible to dismiss. Her employees had tried reaching her. She was not answering. Her family formally reported her missing. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department began comparing information with authorities in Anson County. The pieces were already disturbing. A woman traveled to visit her boyfriend. She missed a planned show. She was last seen getting into her car with him driving. Then he was found alone inside the same car in another county. Allisha's family did not wait quietly for authorities to solve everything. They mobilized. More than 100 people gathered to pray for her safe return. They wore green because it was her favorite color. They distributed flyers. They knocked on doors. They created a social media page to coordinate the search. They traveled from Southern Pines to Charlotte and publicly demanded more information. Her family spoke about Allisha in the present tense because they refused to accept the worst before investigators had confirmed it. They said she would come home. They begged anyone with information to speak. Her mother sat at home looking at Allisha's photographs. Evex had a serious heart condition, and the stress of her daughter's disappearance was devastating. She later said she felt repeatedly drawn toward Allisha's pictures, as though something was trying to tell her that her daughter was in danger. Allisha's cousin kept repeating one simple point. Allisha would have told them. She would not vanish without a word. She would not abandon her business, miss appointments, ignore her family, and leave all of her belongings behind. And while the public search continued, investigators were beginning to find evidence that pushed the case away from a hopeful disappearance and towards something much darker.
Allisha Watts' family says they are frustrated with the lack of information they're receiving from law enforcement. They want to know, where are the search parties? Where are the resources to help find her? So they're conducting their own searches, handing out these flyers, looking for any tips that can help bring her home.
Allisha Watts, come home.
Allisha Watts, come home.
For 3 weeks on Tuesday nights, the chants and prayers are loud.
We want to feel her presence in any way that we can.
This Tuesday, the group hit the road from Southern Pines to the Anson County DMV, where Allisha's car was found with her unresponsive boyfriend, James Dunmore, inside.
Being here is sort of maybe following in a track or a path that she has been, and if not she, then he.
Hoping their actions move Dunmore to act in some way. It's been 23 days since anyone has seen the 39-year-old alive. With each day, frustration grows.
When's the sheriff going to speak up? When is the lieutenant going to speak up? They're not letting us know anything.
Family members growing more concerned as more information is revealed about Dunmore. On the ground tonight.
We got to stop till we get some answers.
The search continues as they hold on to hope.
We need to search for the living and not for the dead. And our searches will reveal where she is.
At the prayer vigil tonight was an Anson County Sheriff's Office captain. He says his department conducted another search of the wooded area around the DMV, hoping to find any other evidence, but nothing turned up.
On July 20th, investigators reportedly recovered a shell casing from the street outside James's home in Charlotte. That same day, he was publicly identified as a person of interest. 6 days later, investigators searched his property and a vehicle associated with him. Allisha was not there, but the investigation was no longer based only on suspicion. There was a digital trail. Cell phone records and GPS information began creating a map. Modern phones reveal far more than many people realize. Even when nobody answers a call or sends a message, devices can connect to towers, register location changes, interact with applications, and create a timeline of movement. Investigators reportedly traced location data connected to Allisha's phone, James's phone, and her Mercedes. The data pointed away from Charlotte. It led toward rural Montgomery County, toward an area less than 20 minutes from Allisha's own home. That detail is chilling. Someone had taken Allisha away from James's neighborhood in Charlotte and transported her back toward the part of the state where she lived. But instead of taking her home, the trail stopped near a cemetery. For 39 days, Allisha's family searched, prayed, and demanded answers. Then, on August 24, 2023, investigators entered a wooded area behind Norman Community Cemetery. Cadaver dogs assisted in the search. There, near the Montgomery and Richmond County lines, authorities found human remains. The remains were identified as Allisha Watts. She had been lying in those woods while her family was printing flyers, holding vigils, and begging her to come home. The discovery ended the search. But it did not answer the most important question. What had happened to Allisha inside the gap between being seen in Charlotte and being left behind a rural cemetery? James Dunmore was arrested that same day. Reporters called questions toward him as officers walked him into custody. What happened to Allisha? Did he kill her? Was there anything he wanted to say to her family? James said nothing. He was initially charged with first-degree murder. The bond was set at $1 million, and he was later ordered held without bond. Prosecutors began laying out the circumstantial case. James had been the last known person with Allisha. He had been driving her Mercedes. He was later found alone in it. Her phone remained at his home. Her purse remained inside the vehicle. Phone and GPS records reportedly linked the devices to the area where her remains were recovered. Investigators also testified that doorbell camera footage from James's home had been deleted during the critical window of July 17th and July 18th. Those were the same days in which investigators believed Allisha had been transported away from Charlotte. Deleted footage does not automatically prove murder, but it creates an obvious question. Who deleted it? And why would footage covering the exact period of a woman's disappearance suddenly be removed? There was another strange detail. Detectives testified that when they attempted to speak with James at the hospital after he was found in Allisha's car, he said he wanted to watch television and would be hiring an attorney. He had the legal right to remain silent. He had the legal right to hire counsel. But for Allisha's family, his lack of urgency was difficult to understand. A woman he had been dating had vanished. He was inside her vehicle. Her belongings were still with him. Yet he was not giving the family the one thing they wanted, a clear explanation. Then the case took another dramatic turn. James's legal wife came forward. Arte Bruton appeared at the courthouse, but she did not arrive to defend her husband. She sat near Allisha's family. Imagine the tension in that room. Allisha's loved ones had just learned that the man she believed was her boyfriend had a wife. Arte had spent years connected to James and was now sitting beside the family of the woman who disappeared after visiting him. Two sides of his private life were finally in the same place. Arte testified about what she described as approximately 15 years of emotional and physical abuse connected to James. She alleged punching, kicking, choking, threats, and a pattern that left her afraid. She had pursued a protective order and was in the process of divorcing him. After appearing in court, Arte said she had come to support Allisha's family and speak for domestic violence victims. That scene alone raises questions no courtroom ruling can completely answer. What did James tell Allisha about Arte? Did he say his marriage was already over? Did he say Arte was only a former girlfriend? Did he describe her allegations as lies? And what did he tell Arte about Allisha? Did he admit he had another serious relationship? Or did he minimize Allisha as someone who meant nothing? One woman said she had survived years of him. The other woman was now dead, and the man connecting them had reportedly denied the marriage entirely. This is why secret relationships are not always just gossip. A lie about marital status can keep two women from comparing experiences. It can stop one woman from warning the other. It allows the man in the middle to control what each person believes. As long as Arte and Allisha remained separated, James could potentially tell each woman a different version of reality. But now, in court, the two families were united by the same unanswered question. What did James do? The prosecution appeared to have a powerful circumstantial case. There was the last known sighting, the Mercedes, the purse, the phone, the deleted footage, the GPS records, the rural location, James's criminal history, and the wife's abuse allegations. But one major weakness remained. The medical examiner could not determine exactly how Allisha died. Her remains had been exposed in the wooded area for weeks. Decomposition had destroyed much of the physical evidence. The final autopsy listed the cause and manner of death as undetermined. That does not mean Allisha died naturally. It does not mean investigators stopped believing a crime had occurred.
Now here's what the autopsy shows. First, the cause of Watts' death right now listed as undetermined. It also states Watts' body was skeletonized and severely decomposed, adding she was found missing bones and teeth.
It means the body could no longer show prosecutors a clear gunshot wound, stabbing, strangulation injury, poisoning, or other medically provable cause. That missing answer mattered enormously. A murder jury would be asked to convict James without being shown precisely how Allisha died. The state could demonstrate that she disappeared after being with him. It could show that he had her vehicle and belongings. It could show that digital evidence connected the phones and car to the recovery area. It could raise questions about deleted footage. But could prosecutors prove first-degree murder beyond a reasonable doubt without a confirmed cause of death? That uncertainty created risk. And nearly 3 years after Allisha vanished, the case ended without a full murder trial. In February 2026, James Dunmore entered an Alford plea. An Alford plea allows a defendant to accept conviction while maintaining that he is not fully admitting the factual allegations against him.
Outraged after her Charlotte boyfriend avoided a murder trial, pleading guilty to a lesser charge.
WCNC Charlotte's Richard Devane is live this morning outside the courthouse in Montgomery County after an emotional day for the family. Richard.
Yeah, good morning to you, Lisa. Good morning, Ben. Good Thursday morning, all you folks watching us on the Plus. Yesterday, during the proceedings, actually, when the defense attorney was speaking about a possible reason for this whole incident happening, Allisha Watts' father got up, said he couldn't deal with it, and walked out of the courtroom. It was a very emotional day, especially when those folks in that courtroom found out that the person that is responsible for the death of their loved one would probably only spend less than a decade behind bars.
James pleaded to voluntary manslaughter and failure to notify authorities of a non-natural death. In other words, he accepted the legal consequences of the plea without standing in court and giving Allisha's family a complete confession. There was no detailed account of what happened inside the house. No explanation of how Allisha died. No explanation for why her body was taken to the woods. No explanation for why he had her car. No explanation for the deleted doorbell footage. No explanation for the phone location data. No explanation for the lie about being married. The original murder charge disappeared as part of the agreement. James received consecutive sentences that amounted to roughly 10 to 13 years in prison, with credit for time he had already spent in custody. For Allisha's family, the punishment felt painfully small. A woman had vanished. Her remains had been found behind a cemetery. Her mother had suffered through 39 days of uncertainty. Her community had mobilized across counties. James had once faced a murder charge that could have kept him imprisoned for the rest of his life. Now the legal case had ended with manslaughter and a sentence measured in years rather than decades. James apologized in court. He reportedly told the family that nothing he said could bring Allisha back. But the family rejected the apology. Because what does an apology mean when the person refuses to explain what he is apologizing for? Was he apologizing because Allisha died? Because he failed to report her death? Because he drove her car? Because her remains were left in the woods? Or because the evidence had placed him at the center of everything? Allisha's loved ones still did not know. And that is where I want to hear your opinion. Was the plea deal a necessary decision because prosecutors could not medically prove the cause of death? Or did the justice system give James an escape from a murder charge despite the digital evidence, deleted footage, and suspicious timeline? Would you rather see prosecutors accept a guaranteed manslaughter conviction? Or take the risk of a murder trial where James could potentially have walked free? There is no easy answer. A trial could have delivered life imprisonment. It could also have resulted in an acquittal if jurors believed the state had not proven exactly how Allisha died. The plea ensured James would remain convicted of causing her death. But it also meant Allisha's family would never hear every detail tested publicly in court. Allisha's mother, Yvex Franklin, did not live to see the final legal resolution. Her heart condition had kept her away from court proceedings. She followed developments through relatives and friends. She had never personally met James. She never sat across from him. She never heard him explain why her daughter did not come home. Family members later said Yvex died from underlying health problems. Those who loved her believed the grief and stress surrounding Allisha's death deeply affected her. That belief cannot be medically proven from the case information alone. But there is no question that Yvex carried extraordinary pain. She spent more than a month not knowing where her daughter was. She learned Allisha had been found behind a cemetery. She watched the man at the center of the investigation remain silent. And she died before the court case could provide even the limited resolution of the plea deal. Allisha's community worked to ensure she would not be remembered only for the final weeks of her life. A large memorial service was held. Friends and relatives filled the venue. There was a horse-drawn carriage and a dove release. People gathered in Southern Pines. Green balloons were released in her honor. On what should have been Allisha's 40th birthday, her community planted a tree in her memory. That tree represented the future she had been denied. Allisha had been preparing to enter a new decade of her life. She had recently opened a business. She had a cruise planned. She had family members who expected her to return from Charlotte after a weekend visit. Instead, the relationship she believed she had was built around a secret marriage. Her legal case was built around evidence that suggested what happened but could not reveal every detail. And her family was left with a conviction that still did not feel like the full truth. Allisha Watts was not a woman who disappeared without people noticing. She was loved loudly. Her family searched loudly. Her community demanded answers loudly. But the man last seen with her never gave them the explanation they deserved. So let me leave you with the questions at the center of this case. Do you believe Allisha knew James was legally married? Or did he successfully lie to both women and keep them separated? Why was he found alone inside her Mercedes with her belongings? Who deleted the doorbell footage during the disappearance window? What happened between the last sighting in Charlotte and the discovery behind Norman Community Cemetery? And is 10 to 13 years justice when Allisha's family may never learn exactly how she died? Tell me what you believe in the comments. Subscribe to Crime Scene Exposed for more true stories where secret relationships, deception, control, and betrayal turn deadly. Allisha traveled to Charlotte expecting a weekend with the man she called her boyfriend. She never came home. And the wife he had allegedly hidden became one of the people standing beside Allisha's family, demanding answers from him.